And I'm Elise Adler.
And we are the Virginia Native Solutions Consultants, and this is our plan for the Laurel Cliff property. Let's begin by introducing the Monacan Nation with its three core pillars: heritage, history, and home. The Monacan people are one of Virginia's indigenous tribes, with a legacy stretching back for thousands of years in this region. Their heritage is rich and deeply intertwined with the lands they've always called home. This isn't just history in a textbook, this is a living heritage maintained by the Monacan people today in their home in Amherst County. Historically, the Monacan people were not nomadic, but settled agriculturalists, skillfully cultivating the land to sustain their communities. They also possessed intimate knowledge of the forests, utilizing woodland for resources, food, medicine, shelter, and tools. This wasn't just about survival, this reflects a profound spiritual and cultural connection with the land. Traditional practices like the construction of burial mounds demonstrate their connection to the land and their respect for their ancestors. They lived in villages along the rivers, with the capital city of Russellaic located where the Rivanna and James River meet. Imagine a thriving community of 15,000 people that have cultivated a lasting relationship over a millennium. The Monacan story is also one of resilience. Despite facing immense challenges during colonization, including forced removal, loss of land, and attempts to erase their identity, they persevered. They were forced to adapt, moving away from plantations and facing discriminatory laws that tried to strip their rights. But they held on to their traditions, passing down oral traditions, pottery, basketry, beadwork, and powwows. In the 20th century, they actively reorganized and fought for their rights, which culminated in federal recognition in 2018. Today, the Monacan Nation is focused on revitalizing their culture, ensuring their language stays strong, and making sure that their heritage thrives for generations to come. They are reclaiming their history, sharing their stories, and working to ensure a sustainable future for their community and the land that sustains them. This project is a vital part to promote food sovereignty and improve the land. And without this project, the Monacan Nation can continue to grow strong.
Now let's talk about how climate change is affecting overall tree health. Increased temperature and prolonged droughts are weakening trees, making them more vulnerable to pests, diseases, and wildfires. Extreme weather events like storms and heat waves further damage these forests, while shifting climates force species into survival struggles that they cannot always win. According to the United States Geological Survey, solely in the Piedmont region, 3.3 million metric tons of carbon are being produced per year, exacerbating climate change and putting additional stress on our forests. When forests decline, we don't just lose local trees, we lose critical ecosystems, wildlife habitats, one of our best defenses against climate change. The increase in temperature has also increased the impact of invasive species, like the tree of heaven and the spotted lanternfly. Climate change is intensifying the wildfire crisis in the Piedmont region, leading to devastating consequences for both people and ecosystems. Virginia now experiences around 700 wildfires annually. This increased number of wildfires continues to displace native species that depend on these forests for survival. Looking at this map shown here, made by the Virginia Department of Forestry, we can see properties that are at risk of being affected by wildfires over the next 30 years. Looking at the color scale, we can see the severity of wildfire risk. Overall, Amherst County has a moderate risk of wildfires, with lighter orange colors. However, some areas in the northern part of Amherst have a severe risk, shown by the darker colors. The impact of wildfires is staggering. According to the BDF, 9,500 acres of forestry have been lost since 2014, contributing to a 19% decrease in overall tree cover. This not only reduces one of our best defenses against climate change, but also threatens human communities. Wildfires result in the loss of homes and properties, forcing residents to rebuild increasingly unstable or preoccupied areas. Now looking at the effect of climate change on precipitation, we can look at this image here. These maps were created by the Virginia Cooperative Extension of Virginia Tech, and the data in these images will allow the broader impacts of climate change on precipitation patterns. As climate change increases evaporation, more water vapor enters the atmosphere, leading to more frequent and intense rainfall events. This results in harsher storms, higher overall precipitation levels, and more days with rainfall. By comparing the two time periods shown in the picture, hindcast, which is 1981 to 2005, and mid-century, which is 2041 to 2060, we can see clear trends. Looking at the darker blue section, we can easily see how climate change is exacerbating rainfall patterns, as there is a drastic increase in overall precipitation annually. This area is on the east side of the Appalachian Mountains, and the reason for its increased precipitation compared to some of the other areas is due to orographic lift. The mountains force air to rise, and as the air rises, it cools and condenses, which increases precipitation mostly on the windward side of the mountain, which is where Amherst lies. These projections indicate an increase in average annual precipitation and a rise in the number of days with extreme rainfall exceeding 2 inches. While more rainfall may seem beneficial, the reality is much more complex. Intense storms can lead to soil erosion, flooding, and root damage, weakening forests and making them more susceptible to disease and invasive species. Additionally, shifting rainfall patterns may create longer dry spells in between storms, increasing wildfire risk despite the higher overall precipitation.
Shifting gears, let's talk about some invasive species. The spotted lanternfly is native to southeastern Asia, and it was first introduced in Virginia in 2018. It spread relatively quickly, primarily by human activity. This fly lays its eggs in places like on firewood piles or on vehicles, which makes it relatively easy to transport. They promote the growth of sooty mold by interfering with photosynthesis. This happens when the egg masses cover the tops of leaves and interfere with the sunlight that can hit them. This threatens crops like grapevines, fruit trees, and other traditional plants of the Monacan people. Management is crucial to preventing more environmental damage. To manage the spotted lanternfly, several strategies can be put into place. First of all, egg mass identification and destruction is crucial. These egg masses can be scraped off of trees, off of vehicles, and this will limit their reproduction. Additionally, biocontrol is an important approach. Natural predators like parasitic wasps, wheelbugs, and cardinals regulate the spotted lanternfly population. Some plants that attract them are goldenrod, milkweed, and wild bergamot. These crops can be planted in areas with dense spotted lanternfly populations in order to limit their growth. Another invasive species is the tree of heaven. The tree of heaven is native to China and Taiwan, and it was first introduced in America in the 1700s. This tree thrives in disturbed areas like on forest edges and roadsides. A key way to its spreading is through the allelopathic chemicals that it releases, which limits the growth of surrounding plants. This displaces native vegetation, reduces biodiversity, and disrupts local ecosystems. Its domination is a significant challenge to conservation efforts. To manage the tree of heaven, hard pulling is effective for young saplings, but this is a time-sensitive strategy because it's not effective for mature trees. For mature trees, we suggest cutting them down while avoiding the use of harsh chemicals. After removal, we suggest replanting with native species to prevent reinvasion. Some recommended replacements include tulip poplar, black walnut, and red oak. Reintroducing these native trees and shrubs will help to restore biodiversity and create a healthier ecosystem.
Now, I'd like to outline our management plan and goals regarding post-timber harvest land usage. About 70% of the Laurel Cliff property is currently covered by trees, around 10% of which are loblolly pine, as shown in the shaded green areas on the map. The Monacan people have expressed interest in harvesting this timber within the next 5 years, meaning about 131 acres of land will be cleared. Following this timber harvest, it is crucial to sustain ecosystem recovery in order to minimize the impacts of erosion and biodiversity loss. We propose that the Monacan people split the cleared land, using about 2/3 for restoration and reforestation efforts, and 1/3 for a parking space near the powwow site. This chunking of the land will allow the Monacan people to effectively enhance their land health and culture simultaneously, while creating more space for community to attend tribal events. As shown by the feather icon on the map, which marks the location of the powwow, shaded in purple is the proposed area of the parking lot. Furthermore, we propose that the Monacan people put in a gravel lot in order to lessen runoff impacts and reduce ecosystem impacts on Laurel Cliff. In terms of reforestation and restoration, following timber harvest, the soil will be prone to increased levels of erosion as it will be loose and exposed. In order to minimize these risks and build back the forests, we propose that the Monacan people use a mix of natural regeneration and seed dispersal. In keeping with the Virginia Silviculture Water Quality Law, which requires timber harvest to keep sediments away from streams, we propose that the Monacan people implement natural regeneration on the banks of the streams, as shown in blue on the map, in order to protect the aquatic wildlife in the region. This will also create buffer zones of the forests. Then, the Monacan people can use seed dispersal for the rest of the cleared land, working to incorporate native plants into the ecosystem. Plants traditionally gathered by the Monacan people, such as pawpaw, winter grapes, and blackberries, will not only increase ecosystem stability, but will also increase biodiversity in the region. Furthermore, we propose that the Monacan people manage these growing forests through a mix of thinning and pruning. This will not only allow them to decrease the wildfire risk in the area, but will allow them to manage brush and overgrowth. Post-timber harvest also provides a chance for the Monacan Indian Nation to become involved in the carbon credit program. These programs give landowners the opportunity to earn money through practicing healthy forestry and management, leading to sequestered carbon dioxide in their land. Forests act as carbon sinks, and they combat climate change greatly, and the Monacan people's participation in these efforts would not only foster healthy management practices, but would also offer a monetary benefit to offset some of the costs associated with reforestation efforts. Building upon the incorporation of native species into the forest ecosystem, we believe the implementation of intercrop trees will also aid the soil and forest health on Laurel Cliff. We propose that the Monacan people create forested areas intercropped with tree species and native crops in order to enhance carbon sequestration, decrease erosion, which will lead to a forest ecosystem rich in biodiversity and cultural significance. This ties in with the idea of silvopasture, where cattle and forests are integrated in order to increase organic matter in the soil, increase the economic viability of the area, and increase animal welfare. We propose that the Monacan people implement silvopasture on the northern part of Laurel Cliff where cattle are being kept, and this will disperse the cattle's grazing on the land.
Let's dive into soil health. Our analysis of the land in Amherst County, which lies within the Monacan Nation's ancestral homeland and the Piedmont and Blue Ridge regions, reveals specific challenges and opportunities regarding the soil health. Past land use, particularly areas subjected to cattle grazing, has resulted in poor soil quality in certain locations. While the soil is generally well drained in this area, these impacts need addressing. Therefore, our essential goal is to actively improve the overall health of this soil. Why is this so crucial? Because fundamentally, better soil leads to better, more reliable harvests. And enhancing soil health is not only foundational for boosting agricultural productivity, but also for increasing the soil's capacity for carbon sequestration, and critically for promoting genuine food sovereignty for the Monacan Nation. This initiative aims to return vital nutrients into the soil and establish a sustainable, independent food source, grounded in regenerative practices. The United States Department of Agricultural National Resource Conservation Service has identified 5 realistic ways to begin the restoration of soil. These 5 key principles are maximizing the presence of living roots, minimizing disturbance, maximizing soil cover, maximizing biodiversity, and integrating livestock.
Now let's take a look into food sovereignty for Laurel Cliff. It's important to note for our plan that food sovereignty and soil health go hand in hand. We cannot attain food sovereignty unless we have achieved soil health first. Our plan reflects this. Therefore, the first step in our plan is to return vital nutrients into the soil and make it a healthy, thriving ecosystem. We can do this by incorporating things like cover crops and by using a no-till agricultural technique called regenerative agriculture. Secondly, we want to make sure that we are using crops that are compatible with Laurel Cliff's well-draining soil. We can plant these crops together in groups in a process known as intercropping, which has many proven benefits for both the crop and the soil. Third, we want to make sure that we are keeping carbon sequestration in mind throughout the process, because that's what's going to keep the soil healthy and the plants thriving. The techniques that we'll be using will ensure that carbon is being retained into the soil and not being released back again. And the final step to food sovereignty is to incorporate traditional crops back into our newly healthy soil. We can do this by starting with traditional Monacan crops such as two-tailed strawberry corn and world winter squash. Now, let's take take a dive into regenerative agriculture, what it is and what its benefits are. Regenerative agriculture focuses on a few main things. The first of these is a no-till technique. When soil is tilled, it releases carbon and water into the atmosphere, drying out the soil and depleting it of nutrients. Carbon is really good to have in the soil because it aids soil structure, it provides nutrients, and it supports microorganic life. With a no-till technique, we will ensure that when plants retain carbon into the soil, it stays there and it keeps the soil healthy and known to hold soil better, boost diversity, support a varied harvest, and maximize productivity. And then the final thing for regenerative agriculture is using a cover crop. Cover crops retain nutrients and moisture in the soil. They can be planted in between rows of crops and can be things such as rye or red clover. Their process is to grow and then decompose into the soil, inputting their nutrients into the soil as well as organic matter, creating a good cycle of input and health. Now to tie this back to indigenous culture and food sovereignty. Ultimately, we believe that regenerative agriculture is the way to food sovereignty for Laurel Cliff. This is because regenerative agriculture has a deep history with Native American culture as well. An example of this is with intercropping with the three sisters, corn, beans, and squash. The corn acts as a stalk for the beans to grow on, the beans input nitrogen into the soil, and the squash blocks out weeds and retains nutrients in the soil. This is also tied to polyculture, in which groups of plants are grown together in a way that resembles nature. For the Monacan Nation, we recommend inputting crops such as Tutela strawberry corn, World Wonder squash, and Scarlet Runner beans, as well as a rye for a cover crop in between rows of crops. We believe that this will both promote food sovereignty and provide for the cultural needs of the group. Now, let's take a look at funding. Our estimated expenditure at a start is about $200,000. Keep in mind, this is just to get the project off the ground, and we can always add additional funds later. There are several funds that we can pull this money from. The one that we recommend most is the NAAF, Native American Agricultural Fund. They fund community food sovereignty and agroforestry practices. They also provide scholarships, education, technical support, and advocacy services. The available pool for them is $4.5 million, and we can earn up to $200,000 per submission. However, there are a few other options. There's SARE, which is Sustainable Agricultural Research and Education Fund. They fund research and education projects for sustainable agricultural practices. There's also EQUIP, Environmental Quality Incentives Program. It's a USDA-based fund, and they provide financial and technical support towards conservation practices. This includes things like cover cropping, no-till agriculture, and rotational grazing.
This is our proposed timeline for the plan. We suggest beginning with community engagement and education in order to incorporate the Monacan community into decision-making about their own land and resources. Next, an initial assessment and planning can occur from months 1 through 3. Then, invasive species control, starting at month 3 and continuing indefinitely. Soil health restoration may begin at that point. Then by the end of year 1, we suggest replanting with native species. Agroforestry can begin around year 5, and we suggest implementing regular monitoring for years to come.
With our proposal for the Laurel Cliff property, we recognize that this is more than just a land management plan. It's a commitment to sustainability, biodiversity, and long-term ecological resilience. Our approach integrates invasive species control, strategic reforestation, and regenerative agriculture, all to ensure that this land not only recovers, but thrives for generations to come. This proposal is not just about restoring a piece of land. It's about creating a model for sustainable land management, one that respects both the natural environment and the needs of future generations.
Here are our sources.
Thank you for listening. Questions?
Right, team, your time was 19 minutes and 18 seconds. Judges, that's all 5 points on your final question. We are resetting the clock. Judges, you may begin.
Could you guys elaborate or maybe go into some more detail about the decision to kind of create that parking area and the post-harvest land?
Yeah, so the thought process behind that is we really wanted to create a space for people to become involved in the culture of the Monacan people. And so right now, from what I've researched and seen online, people, when they attend events like the powwow, are just parking on the grass, and that's not good for the soil, and it doesn't allow for a lot of space for people to attend. So putting in this lot will create a space for them to sustain tribal engagement for years to come.
Can you guys expand on the monetary benefit of the carbon credit program for the tribe?
Yeah, so carbon credit programs, they provide money for healthy forestry practices. So it's an application-based program, and I don't have full details on numbers and amounts that you can receive through the program. It's not going to be something huge that would fund something like a parking lot, but every little bit helps in building up healthy practices on the land.
And if I may add, it's also it's state-based, so the Monica Nation would go through the same process of anyone holding a lot of land in the state of Virginia.
Any remaining questions, judges? This is your last opportunity. All right, team, thank you so much. Thank you.